Welcome to Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker, and I am running solo this week, so Will can have some time with his family. I hope you guys are all doing well. It has been a crazy week here in Colorado. A week ago, 85, sunny outside. Then it cooled off, and we had a pouring down rain. Stayed cool a few days. And then it got down to freezing, and we got like 4 inches of snow. And then once it quit snowing about 10 o'clock on Friday morning, the sun came out about hour later, and then it warmed up to like 55, 60 degrees. And by the afternoon, it was all melted and gone. Literally all in one day. We went from freezing to everything white to sunny and green. So, but that's how our week has been. The cool thing is the rain and the snow actually let me get a little bit of shop time this week, which I desperately wanted. It's been rare here lately, but I'm working on refinishing these 100-year-old chairs that came out of the schoolhouse that my grandparents and my parents attended. And so kind of cool project, and getting to use my lovely Surf Prep 3x4 sander, doing a lot of sanding, stripping them down and refinishing them. And they are looking really, really nice. So I hope you guys have all been doing well. I've been busy with sign installs and working on the farm, trying to get my pasture established. I think I talked about that on the last podcast. I started getting ready to seed it, and the rain and snow came in at perfect timing right after I got all the seed and fertilizer down. So hoping here in a few weeks we'll have a nice green pasture spotting up and really make a difference on our property. And because I'm looking to add some animals in the future, but got to get the pasture established well. This property was very much neglected before we bought it, and so I've had a lot of work to do to it. But yeah, so if you've been listening to the last few episodes, you know, I kind of went through a period for, I guess, 4 or 6 weeks where, I don't know, it wasn't that my faith was waning, and I never stopped believing, but sometimes, you know, that closeness to God, you kind of feel distant, and I shouldn't say getting a point where you're not in the mood to worship, but maybe not worshiping like you normally do, and praying like you normally do. Still praying, but there's a difference when you're praying and like you could just feel the Holy Spirit there with you and connect you. And we all go through these times. And, you know, I think that when we go through these times, that is where the relationships that we establish, I talk about my men's group that I'm just so thankful for. I got a group of guys that I know they're praying for me, and we meet every week, and it just uplift one another and hold each other accountable for being in the Word and hold each other accountable for praying. But then you could tell when you spend a lot of time with a person when something's just not right. They're not their normal self, and there's a lot of things that could cause us, stress with work, stress in a marriage, finances, our kids, health issues of family members, and so many other things. And but when you have that group of guys around you that know you and can tell when there's something off, it's just invaluable. And so this week is making me think of a story back in the Old Testament. I'm going to read a little section here in Exodus. This is Exodus 17, verse 8 through 13, and I'm going to read it from my ESV today. So this is a story about when they go to fight Amalek. And so Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. When Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun, and Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. And while here we're talking about them being in a battle, this story relates to me of the battles in our life, whatever that may be, whether it's your marriage, finances, work, health, so on. And sometimes, like, we get weary in the battle. You know, we're wanting to hold up our arms and worship the Lord, and we just get tired. We get weary, and it becomes a challenge to do it. And what this story tells me is, like, Moses didn't ask them to come hold up his hands to help him. They saw that he's weary and that he needed help. They placed the stone for him to sit and rest on, and then one got on each side and held up an arm so that he could hold his arms up and they could win the battle. And that, whatever that battle is, and I'm so thankful for my pastor. You guys have probably heard. If you haven't heard, go back and listen to Pastor Will's testimony. We had him on the podcast a year or so ago, and for the men in my men's group. But like, while I was going through this time, I can't tell you how many times Pastor Will, and I didn't tell him anything was going on. I just get a random text from him, said, "Thinking about you, brother. Anything I could pray for?" Same thing with some guys in my men's group. And so while I was going through that period of time, the guys around me could tell something wasn't right. Like, Tom needs some help. He needs us to hold up his arms so he could keep worshiping, stay in the fight, and win this battle. And so, while it's easy to say be tough as a man and get through it, I think we often need the help of our brothers. And so I read this passage to you today and want to encourage you to look around at the Moses in your life, and just keep your eye on your brothers. Say, is there somebody who needs you to come help hold up their arm while they get through a battle? And sometimes we get so busy in our lives that we forget to take time to pay attention to those guys or whoever that might need our help to get through a tough time or situation in their life. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate the guys in my life that show up week in and week out, and we encourage one another in the Word and through prayer, and then go and do other things like, go on a little camping trip and make time to go for a bike ride or fishing with one another. And if you're not already involved in a men's group, I want to encourage you to start one. And you might think that a men's group has to be a deep Bible study. And while I certainly encourage that, I think that's fantastic. But we have some different groups at our church. We have different types. So we have groups that we call life groups, and those are like my men's group, where we get together every Thursday morning, and we meet at the local restaurant here and Denny's, and we have coffee. Some guys will have breakfast, but we usually read a chapter of the Bible each week and then just talk about life. Sometimes the our intention of what we're going to talk about wanders off track because one of us is going through something and they need to vent. They need to get it out and have somebody listen. And sometimes that's what that hour and a half turns into. And but typically we read a chapter of the Bible and discuss it, and then pray, and then occasionally we'll do like we're doing right now, where we pick a book and we just read a chapter a week at home on our own and make notes, and then we come in and discuss and kind of talk about how it relates to our lives or things we've gone through. And that's a really easy. And the other thing there is, like, if you don't feel comfortable in leading a Bible study or something like that, we have it's like an app at our church that you could download on your iPad or computer or smart TV, and it has a bunch of different Bible studies where you literally don't have to do anything other than press play. And so if you don't feel comfortable, writing or leading a study on your own, you can hit play. Anybody knows how to hit play. And then essentially you have a pastor, and they're from all over, the country, leading a Bible study that you watch. And then most of the time it'll have some discussion questions, things like that, where you can then talk about it. So great way to get started. The other type of group that we have is what we call activity groups. There's still a life group. We have one that's our fishing group, and that one's actually led by Pastor Will. He's a very, very good fisherman, and he started the group, and we all, just a couple times a year, we don't do it on a weekly basis because the reality is, while all us men would probably dream about going fishing every week, most of us don't have the time. But we'll get together 3-4 times over the course of the summer and go somewhere. Typically, we'll go somewhere, fish, and then have lunch afterwards, break bread. And sometimes it'll be a meet up at the reservoir after work and hang out. But the cool thing about those type things, if you know how to fish or hunt or ride a bicycle, a kayak, or whatever your hobby is, golf. Golf's a really great when you take a few fellows out and you're having time for conversation, either while you're casting the rod or in the golf cart going around the course. And those times of having conversation on the bank of a pond with Pastor Will are just, you can't put a value on. Me and my buddy Larry, we try to go camping and we go up to a reservoir and had a beautiful campsite overlooking the reservoir, going to do some fishing. It ended up raining the whole weekend. We spent more time sitting in his RV just talking, reading a book, relaxing, than we did fishing. But still, the conversations and when you're in that relaxed atmosphere with people that care about you, allow you that time of kind of holding up one another's arms. So what's your hobby? What do you enjoy doing? Because I guarantee you're not the only person in your church that has that same interest. The other beauty that I see of the activity style, I still call it a life group, but the activity style of life group versus a dedicated Bible study life group is, if you have somebody at work or somebody you meet that in whatever part of life, might be another parent on your kid's soccer team or whatever, that you want to invite them to church and they're really push-offish to religion or to the Bible or to church or whatever, but they're most likely not afraid to go fishing with you or afraid to golf. And so being able to invite a stranger or somebody from that you know through another avenue out to a activity style life group. Say, hey man, a couple of us guys, we're going up fishing on the reservoir. We're going to barbecue afterwards. Why don't you come with us? And then in that atmosphere where you're fishing and talking about fishing, it also gives way to those opportunities of having conversations about faith. This is another great reason for starting that type of group. And then we have serve groups where, at our church, we have the greeters group. And so it's a group of people that literally they get together, they pray before church and talk and hang out, and then they go and greet people at the doors. We have the people that work in the children's ministry and the daycare. I call it daycare, but taking care of the small children. We have our tech team that operates cameras and recording equipment. Then we have our music ministry team that gets up on stage and sings. And so but getting together, you get to know people on a closer level, and you're able to share stuff and support one another in a way that you can't do when it's just a random person that you see at church once a week and say hello and shake hands. So this passage just, I thought about it, and, it just amazed me how Moses didn't ask for help, but Aaron and Hur recognized that he needed the help. So this week, if you're not in a group, I certainly encourage you to get one. But if you are, just really pay attention. Is there something off about somebody that you can hold up their arms and help them get through a tough time? So, I know this is kind of a short message, but it's just really been on my heart this week. Hoping I've got to get outside and do a little irrigation work this afternoon. This is actually early Monday morning when I'm recording this. And the reason Will and I decided to do this is, Will's on the East Coast. We typically record at 9 p.m. his time and 7 p.m. my time, which always falls right at our dinner time. And I need to be outside either grilling or, doing stuff with my family. And vice versa, Will can't record until later because he has small children. And so he needs the time that would be a little better for me. He either A, needs to be spending with his small children, or he's already in bed if we moved it later. And so, but we didn't want to go to just being a bi-weekly. And so we put the poll out there and asked, what do you guys think about it? And we really appreciate the response that all of you sent in saying, hey, do the solos episode. So we enjoy having the episode every week. So we're going to kind of just test this for a little while, particularly in the summertime when the days are longer here. We have really odd, because I'm at the back end of our time zone. Our days, like it's summertime, it didn't get dark till 9:30 at night here. And so our family is very much an outdoors family. If during the summer, we grill outside, we eat outside, we're outside with the animals or, playing with the dog in the yard. And love being outside. But speaking of outside, like, after having that snow, now it's like 75 degrees here today, so are going to be. So I am going to be out in the field working today, getting everything ready for planting. I got to get my garden and all ready. It's amazing how quickly it went from being winter to spring in just a matter of seconds. And I always try to prepare in the wintertime for what's coming in the spring, but this year it just popped up so quick. And I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball on everything I need to do outside. So I have a long list today, and then hoping tonight after I get all that done. The sun goes down to get in the shop and finish up those chairs. I'm anxious to finish I still got to go through a couple more grits, and then I'm trying to decide, do I want to stain them? Do I just want to put a clear coat on them and let them have that natural finish? They're really pretty. To be honest with you, I really don't have a use for these chairs. My wife said, where are we going to put them at? It's like, I don't know, but I took them because my uncle had given them to my stepdad, and my stepdad was going to refinish them. But then he got sick. He had COPD the last like 4 or 5 years of his life, and was on a breathing machine. And it got to the point where he had to have an oxygen tank just walk from his bedroom to the den. And he used to be able to go outside in his shop every day, and he was a fantastic woodworker, absolutely amazing. He had planned to refinish these, and so it's kind of like a connection with my stepdad, like to finish these, and then also knowing that these chairs came out of the school that my parents and grandparents went to. So anyway, it's more of a mental, emotional project than it is an actual woodworking project, but it's kind of fun because, through the sanding process and all, you have hours and hours of thinking time, and, you kind of just sit there and think about my dad. And, when I was 31 years old, I had all 4 of my grandparents and both my parents alive. And in 18 months, I lost my dad and all 4 grandparents. And so I still have my mom alive, but that's it. And I have a couple aunts and uncles that are still alive as well. But yeah, man, just a lot of thinking time this weekend while running my good old surf prep. And but I do want to say thank you to all our Patreon members, and we really appreciate you guys helping support the podcast, and really appreciate if you guys are listening. If you want to support us financially, you can go to Patreon/Faith Talks Wood and do that. But if you haven't already, go on to Apple. That's where about 90% of our listeners are at, but the others are on Spotify for the most part. But whatever app you're listening to your podcast, go and type us a review and give us a 5-star review if you feel we deserve it, and tell a friend about the podcast. This is a mission for us to share the gospel through this medium. And so the more people we can share it with, the better. And if you have any questions, send us in questions. We'd be glad to answer them. We are, whether that be in the Bible, about woodworking or whatever, we're glad to do that. We're not experts, while Will is certainly a well-trained pastor and has a degree in biblical studies. I do not. I'm just a guy that loves reading the Word and loves praying and talking to other people about it. But send us in your questions, and we will do our best to answer them. So I know this is a little bit shorter episode than we typically have, but it was a small passage that was on my heart, and I wanted to share it. But I am going to go get changed and get out in the field and get to work today, and then hopefully into the shop tonight. So hope you all have a blessed week. And until next time, I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.